There will obviously be time once he's found to look at the fallout from this and to look at ways that it could have been prevented. But some really disturbing details coming out about his recent history, including, I think, threats to carry out a shooting at a National Guard facility. Also, I think he'd been committed to a mental health facility. How does that make you feel as a former police officer, and you're also the head of the National Fallen Police Officers Fund over there in America as well, that people like this are still able to commit these kind of crimes, allegedly?
Yeah, no, this is look, this is an issue that we need to address as a whole. And if you think about it, this year alone, we've had about 566 mass shootings in the United States. So those are incidents where four or more people were shot and killed, or four or more people were shot at one time that involved the death. And look, they're not slowing anytime soon. I mean, this is the reality. People can get guns, um, and you know, and depends on who gets the gun. You just never know what they're going through, what type of mental health crisis it is. Now, the left will try to use this. Unfortunately, they'll try to use it and to try to go after gun control. But I've always said that the only way we're going to stop bad people with guns are to have good people with guns. That's the reality. That's the world that we live in right now. And, you know, we're doing everything that we can. I've even seen on the media earlier where the media has been trying to blame law enforcement. Look, law enforcement can't be there. We're a reactive force. We try to be as proactive as possible. But the reality is we can't get to all these locations at one time. We have to wait until someone reports it to law enforcement in order for law enforcement to respond. And, you know, it's unfortunate. I really hate it for these families. But the reality is, as we're talking about mental health and these challenges dealing with mental health, none of these systems talk. Erin, and it's as simple as this. We can go out and arrest someone, make a mental health arrest. If someone that says that they're suicidal, they're going to kill themselves, they're going to kill their whole family, we'll go out and we'll make the arrest. We'll put them in a hospital for 48 hours. They'll hold them for 48 hours. The reality is, once he's released. They're not going to tell us. They're not going to notify law enforcement. There's no connection. If this guy is held in any type of mental health facility, they're not going to notify law enforcement. They're not going to notify law enforcement that this guy's a danger to himself or others, and he's been treated for these things. So we don't have a way to even follow these individuals. So look, there's definitely an issue that we need to address as it relates to mental health. You know, I know a lot of people have put in the United States, we have this HIPAA guidelines where health information can't be shared. And I think in the nature dealing with homeland security and dealing with these type of attacks, that needs to be a situation where we're able to communicate with law enforcement. That's the only way we can be proactive in trying to address some of these issues.
It's very rare that I would describe myself as being on the left. On this issue, though, I really am. I cannot understand why you guys don't strengthen those gun laws. But I also understand and acknowledge that when there are bad people currently with guns there, that the good guys need them too, and the people who are innocent and looking to protect themselves. But we can't really understand this in Australia. Our Prime Minister's obviously over there at the moment. Kamala Harris has praised our country for its gun reforms. Have a quick listen to this.
Gun violence has terrorized and traumatized so many of our communities in this country. And let us be clear, it does not have to be this way, as our friends in Australia have demonstrated.
Doctor, does it get less impactful every time this happens? For us here in Australia, it's such a big deal, but it happens so often over in America. How do people react to it now? Is there almost just a sense of inevitability?
Yeah, you know what? Look, people are desensitized to gun violence, and unfortunately, it happens more than anywhere else in the inner city. That happens. I mean, that's the reality. But you got to think about this: we have crossed the Rubicon already. We have over 344 million guns in circulation. Who in God's name going to be able to track down these guns? And you know, we're not even talking about guns that are just sold. People going to gun shops to buy guns. You can buy a gun anytime you want on the street. That's just the way that it is. I mean, you know, it doesn't matter. That's why I always try to bring some sense of a reality to this. You know, we can talk about, you know, outlawing the guns and pulling certain weapons off the street. The reality is they're going to be there. And you know what? If people can't get them, they're going to find ways to get them. they're gonna break into houses. They're gonna break into pawn shops. They're gonna break into these. They're gonna get the guns. The reality is that's something that we have to live with. Now, what I will say is, because of the levels of violence that we deal with, we deal with violence in these communities. We have to find ways to empower our law enforcement. We have to give them the tools. We got to change the rules of engagement as well. Look, you have a lot of agencies that are getting. We have just recently had an incident where a shooter got into a firefight with law enforcement, and unfortunately, law enforcement. I mean, they shot him, but they didn't take him out. And the reality is, you have law enforcement that are kind of worried about the media. They're worried about media perception, and we can't live life like that. We have to be able to get certain people off the streets. If we can't incarcerate them, and we're gonna keep pushing them back onto the streets, we're gonna keep this cycle of violence going on, then we're gonna keep having these problems.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you were saying, and we have similar issues here as well when it comes to police being worried about that side of things. Dr. Trey Pennie, thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Of course, thank you for having me.